Welcome back to the Comp Closet podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Sarah, and today's episode is actually a special one because we have a return guest. Dana Griffin joined us back in April 2024, 2 weeks out from her first ever show. And since then, so much has changed. She's competed multiple times. She's won her FMG pro card. She's made her pro debut and placed top 10 in the world, while having so much going on in life as well. Dana, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back on. I'm so excited.
If we think back to last time we sat down together, which was April 2024, a couple of weeks before your first show, can you recall how it felt to be 2 weeks out from your first show and then how it felt to step on stage for the first time?
Can I just say, it feels like yesterday that we did that recording. So
It does.
where the heck has the time gone? As you said, so much has happened, so much has changed since that first show. But I remember, if I think back to that show, I remember saying to you on that podcast that, I thought I was going to be so nervous, and I had all of these measures in place to help manage the nerves on show day. Just walking into my debut show and having no idea what to expect. I just was like, yeah, it's crazy that you and I did a whole episode, because I look back now and I go, what was I didn't even have anything to offer. I didn't have any information to offer. But yeah, when I think back to that first show, I was prepared to be very nervous. But in reality, when show day came, I actually was not nervous at all. I was very calm. I was very cool, calm, collected. I feel like my first prep was very long. So I feel like when the lead up was so long and I was anticipating that day for so long, by the time I got there, the nerves were gone. I was very settled. So yeah, the first show went very well.
Do you feel like you did anything specifically that helped with those nerves, or do you think it's, like you said, just having that long prep and having that time to prepare for the show?
Looking back, I don't think I did anything in particular that was special or anything like that. I think, yeah, as I said, it was just that really long preparation phase. I had a lot of time to process what was happening. And by that stage, by the time it gets to show day, I had been in prep for, I think it was just over 6 months. So the work is done. I think that's what people don't realize, is the work is done. Show day is the fun part at the end. All of the hard stuff is already done. All of the preparation, you've been through the worst of it. So I just was, as I said, very calm, because all I had to do was just enjoy it by that stage.
Yes, 100%. And then do you remember what it actually was that you were anticipating, or what it was that you were afraid of before that first show?
I think just the unknown, to be honest. I think, as I said to you way back when, it's just, you have no idea. People can try to prepare you for your first show. You can have all the information and you can, listen to all the podcasts and everything else, but until you've done it yourself, you don't know what you're in for. That feeling, stepping out onto that stage when you're nervous and your legs are shaking and you're petrified you're going to fall over on the stage and you don't know how many people are going to be in the audience. It's a feeling like no other. And yeah, I think it was just the unknown. I just didn't know what I was in for. So I think that's what I kind of built up in my head the most, was the fear of, what's going to happen? How am I going to go? Am I going to do myself proud? And yeah.
Yes, I feel like I remember that feeling so well too, stepping onto stage for the first time, but that anticipation building up the whole time. And then as soon as you've done your T-walk, you're kind of like, this is okay, we're alive. Your brain kind of comes back and it's fine. And I feel like that kind of shifts as you get more experience as well. So do you feel like you've had any changes in terms of how you feel before you get on stage, or how you feel when you get on stage as you've gained more experience throughout the different shows?
I mean, look, I don't know if this is going to be a common response from people, but I feel like my nerves before a show have gotten worse now than when I first started, because now I know what to expect. I've proved what I'm capable of. So I think I put more pressure on myself now to perform, because I think I don't want to let myself down. Whereas again, that first show, I didn't have anything to compare it to. So I didn't really have any expectations of myself other than to just give it a go. So I think my nerves are definitely worse nowadays than they were when I first started out. But I think the difference is, like you said, that first time you step on stage, you're so nervous and you just kind of like rush through your T-walk and you finish and you're like, oh, that wasn't bad at all. Whereas now, having competed a few times, I'm more like, okay, they're just nerves, but we want to slow it down and we really want to enjoy this time on stage, because you know from experience how quick it's over. And I never want to come off stage and think, oh my gosh, I wish I could do that again, or I wish I was more present. So I think with the experience now, that's the main difference, is I'm like, no, don't worry about the nerves, just enjoy it. Just be present, enjoy it, and give it a red hot crack.
Yeah, so true. And I think that's such an important point that you raised as well about, like, you know, your first show, you don't have as much pressure on yourself. Like, you have no idea what the result is going to be. And then each show that you do, like, you obviously want to beat your last package and beat how you looked last time, but you kind of like have this conception of like, here's where I sat last time. You obviously want to do a little bit better, like, right, even though you're
Yep.
competing against yourself. And then
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, it's just like embracing that fact that you have no expectations and no pressure on yourself, because you're never going to have that again after your first show, except for maybe
Yeah.
your pro debut. But like, I know you did yours at Worlds, so that's a whole nother thing that we'll get into.
Yeah.
What happened between your first show and the show where you went pro? Like, how did you make so much progress?
A lot happened. A lot happened in that space. Look, from the moment I finished my first comp, I took a few months, I won't say off, because you never really switch off if you're planning on competing again, but I did have a few months where I sat at like maintenance calories. And I won't say a build, because knowing what I know now, I wouldn't say it was a build. But yeah, I sat at a comfortable maintenance and I trained very, very hard. And I decided, once I got my feedback from my first show, the feedback was very positive. And there wasn't really anything distinct in the feedback that was like, you know, you really need to fix this, or you really need to. It was all very positive. So I made the decision from there to compete again that year. I did the Gold Coast show in October, and I definitely did a lot of, my prep for my second show was a lot shorter. It was a lot more rushed. Yeah, looking back at it now, I think I probably should have maybe taken a longer period off and just kind of skipped that middle show, because yeah, like looking back at it now, I think I could have achieved so much more if I dedicated a longer off season. But I think things happen for a reason, and I needed to kind of learn. The reason I say that is because my second show in the Gold Coast, I went up against a phenomenal competitor, Franny, who won her pro card. And yeah, like I look back at that performance now and I think, you know, she stood out. She had some really incredible features about her that made her place higher than me. And I think that needed to happen for me to be like, okay, like I've got potential, but I've also got some work to do. So once I competed again that year, I went, no, okay, it's time for a really long off season. And the plan from there was to build a lot of muscle. The plan was to grow my glutes, improve my quad sweep. You know, I had a lot of lower body development that I personally wanted to work on. So what did that look like? It looked like months and months and months of lots of eating, lots of training, eating a lot of food. Like honestly, I was so full for a good 6-month period there, but it was necessary. It was necessary to make those changes that I wanted to make to my physique, and it worked.
Yes, absolutely. And then like we'll get into your off season soon, because I feel like that's so important. But just on actually winning your pro card, was that something that you expected in that show?
In the New Zealand show, do you mean? Look, I thought about how to answer this question, and I don't want to come across as arrogant in any way, shape, or form, but I'm going to try and articulate my reasoning here. But I will say, yes, I did expect, not necessarily in New Zealand, I should clarify, not necessarily that show, but I did expect over time that a pro card was something that I would probably achieve at some point. And the reason that I say that is because, well, first of all, when I have something in my mind, I'm going to keep going till I get there. And that was obviously a goal that I was working very hard towards. But also because I did the work, I never really had an off day in that whole period between April 2024 and August 2025, I think New Zealand was. You
It's a
know,
long time.
it is a long time. And let me honestly tell you, I worked at it every single day. Like I never switched off, even on my days where, I wasn't tracking for a day, for example, like I was still very switched on, So yes, I can confidently say that I knew at some point in my journey that I would achieve a pro card because I was willing to do what was required to get there. And I hope that does not come across arrogant at all, but it's just, again, it's just having lived the journey and done the work. I feel like when you keep showing up for yourself every single day, and you know that I went through a few things that definitely could have thrown a spanner in the works, but those things, I didn't let them derail me. So I kind of built that confidence in myself that I'm willing to do it and I'm able to do it if I keep working. So, yeah.
Yes. I don't think that comes across as arrogant at all. I think that makes total sense. And it's like almost just showing up and saying, what would a pro do in this scenario? Or how would a pro be showing up? And you're showing up as that person, like before you even win your pro card. So you're already, acting like you're a pro athlete. You're already showing up in the gym and showing up through your nutrition and recovery and like everything that you need to do as a pro athlete before you actually win that pro card. So I think that makes 100% sense what you said. And
Yeah,
then
good.
you went pro, which is incredible. And
Thank you.
Worlds was what, 2 weeks later?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so, from the top of my head, yeah.
At what point did you decide you're going to do Worlds as your pro debut?
So I won't lie, I had it in my head as a possible idea in the lead up to New Zealand. However, I was just so locked in on my NZ show that I just didn't, I hadn't booked anything. I was just like, it might happen, may not happen. I was just like, I'll see how New Zealand goes, see kind of what feedback I get. We'll just see how it goes and then we'll make a decision. But I had floated the idea to my coach, Rob, before the NZ show. And obviously, once I competed in New Zealand and the outcome that it was, we just thought, you know what, why not? Let's ride the high. Let's push for Worlds. Why not? I'm already conditioned. Granted, we decided to bring conditioning in a lot tighter for Worlds, so that's a whole other story. But, we were like, we're already here. It's literally, I think it was 13 days. I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to give it a go. So I did.
Yes. And so how did you actually bring that conditioning in? Like what did those 13 days look like to then step on stage and place 8th in the world in an insane pro lineup?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the hype. But look, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And my partner will vouch for everything I say here. It was not for the faint-hearted. It was, I will say, I've been saying to people that the 2 weeks between New Zealand and Worlds was harder for me than the entire New Zealand prep. The 2 weeks was brutal. Yeah, so for New Zealand, I was very proud of my package, don't get me wrong, and obviously the outcome showed the work that had been done. But we kind of, I suppose, we reassessed the day after the show and we were like, okay, well, if we are going to bring it to Worlds, if we're going to back it up, you're not an amateur anymore, you're amongst the pros, which means you have to be, you've got to be above and beyond. So we were like, can we afford to cut back a tiny bit more, get the shreds happening a tiny bit more? And yeah, we looked at some numbers and we're like, yeah, we need to come in a little bit tighter. And Rob, this was the morning after NZ, so I had a burger after the New Zealand show, and then the very next morning, Rob had increased my steps by like 2,000 a day, and let me tell you, they were already high. And then I think he pulled my calories down another 200 or something, and again, they were already low, so it was brutal to say the least. Like without having data in front of me, I can't give exact examples, but it was brutal and I felt every bit of that 14 days. It was challenging.
I bet like those little adjustments when you're already lean and you're already on low calories, you're already on high steps, like 2,000 steps or 200 calories doesn't sound like that much to someone who's maybe in a build phase or at the start of a prep. But when you're at the end of the prep and you're already lean, like that is difficult. So mentally, like, is there anything that helped you actually get through that hard 2 weeks?
Well, look, I don't have a good answer for this either. It was literally just me saying to myself, listen, you've just done this for like 6 months. You have like 12 days left. Like, you are not quitting now. But as I said, like, I can't express the difficulty. It was a struggle. I remember one day, I'm going to call myself out here. It's going to be a bit embarrassing, but I'm here to be real with everyone. So I trained, I think it was 2 days after NZ, I trained, and I was just, you would know the feeling. I was just depleted. I was exhausted, feeling all the feels. And I came home from the gym, and I just stood in my kitchen and sobbed. I just sobbed, and my partner was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "I can't do it. I can't do it." And he's like, "Nah, like, you're not quitting now. You've come all this way." And like, very quickly, I was just like, "Nah, wipe those tears, cut it out. This is a privilege. This is a choice. You're doing this by choice." But yeah, like, if that doesn't indicate, I literally cried after my session because I was just like, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, it was very challenging, very mentally challenging, but unfortunately I don't have any good advice for that. It was just one of those moments where you've just got to look yourself in the mirror and say, get it done.
Yeah. And it's just like, I think focusing on the best next step, right? Like, okay, I've done my training session. Now I've just got to get my meal in. And then I've got to get some of my steps done and like getting through that day and ticking those boxes. And then the next day is a whole nother story, fresh slate, starting again, ticking those boxes. And like you said as well, like counting down those days and kind of looking at like how much you've done already, I think really helps as well. Like for me, I find breaking down a prep helps. Like I'm just under 16 weeks out from Italy right now, and like I've already done 8 weeks. So I'm like, okay, I'm already a third of the way through. So it's like I've only got 8 weeks times two left, and you kind of just like keep doing that the whole way through. And I think that like breaking it down really helps. Or if you're at the start of prep, you're like, okay, well, it's only 20 weeks or 24 weeks, and like I've just done double that in a build, so it can't be that hard. I think it's
A
almost like
100%.
bargaining with yourself, right?
And that's exactly what I did. I remember in that, like, I think there was 12 days to go before Worlds. And I remember saying to myself, well, the day before show day doesn't count because I get to have some carbs then. And, I think on Saturday I have my calories are slightly higher. So I was like, that's -2. So there's only really 10. You have to reason with yourself to be like, I can do this.
Yes, prep girl math. It
Yeah,
works.
exactly.
And then how did it actually feel like when you placed? Because you wouldn't have known that you placed, right? But you probably knew that you were top 10 in the world.
Well, funnily enough, I didn't know because I think, look, I don't really know how the call outs work when on the world stage with all the pros, there were so many of us.
Huge,
So
right?
I actually, when you're on stage, you don't know how many people, you're not even thinking about that. But I actually didn't get called out in the top 10 on show day. So I was still at the back of the stage when they kind of called out the top 10. So I actually didn't, I was like, okay, well, look, we gave it a go. Didn't get selected in the top 10. It's okay. It is what it is. But then obviously things changed in the evening round. So I went away at lunchtime and I was kind of like, I have nothing to lose. This is my pro debut. I'm up against some of the best athletes that, are in this sport. Like, I have nothing to lose. So I'm just going to go back out there, give it everything I've got, and know that, I've had a very successful season. I'm just going to leave nothing, on the table. Anyways, I, did exactly that. I came out in the evening round and I brought the energy and I thought, you know what, just give it a crack. And when the results came out, I was very pleasantly surprised to see that I had moved to 8th. So yeah, like I was stoked. And as I said, I went into that pro debut with no expectation on myself, top 10, lovely. Top 5 would have been lovely, but I was just ready to give it a go. I didn't have any expectations. So I was extremely happy with that placing.
Yes, absolutely incredible, and definitely something to be proud of. And I feel like, all of that work, obviously you put in the work during your prep, but so much of that progress that you made would have been due to your off season. And like you mentioned before, you were just full for like 6 months plus in your off season. How did you kind of push through that eating past fullness as part of that process in your off season?
I think it sounds so generic, like everybody says it, but it really does just come down to trusting the process. Like, I'm not afraid of putting on a bit of body fat, right? Like, that doesn't bother me because I know how quickly, like, you've prepped how many times, how quickly can you remove body fat?
Mm.
It's not something that frightens me. So I think eating to the point of really, really, really full, like I just was like, it's the same as you put 100% effort into your cut. If you want to improve the next season, you seriously have to put 100% effort into your build as well. So for me, it's just how I'm wired. It wasn't really, it was a non-negotiable. It was, this is what I have to eat today. This is what I have to eat. So you're full, but you get it down. As I said, it's the same effort as when you're hungry and you've eaten all your food for the day and you can't have anything else. It's the same, but it's just the opposite spectrum. So for me, like it was challenging, don't get me wrong, like very full, very uncomfortable, mentally challenging because you're like, I should be listening to my body. Like my body's telling me I'm full. But I was just able to kind of go beyond that and go, no, this is serving a purpose. You know, I'm training really hard. You know, I'm lifting really heavy weights. I need to fuel that training and I want to come back. I knew I wanted to come back a whole new person for the NZ show. So I had that goal in mind. So for me, just thinking about the change that I wanted to make to my physique, I knew what I had to do to make that change. So it made the process a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like once you've done a few builds and then you've competed and you've seen those changes like from the builds, it just makes it mentally that much easier because you know, oh, last time we made this many changes. Like if we go even more this build, we're going to make even more changes. So I feel like it just makes it easier when you've actually seen those changes because it can be hard in your off season when you're training so hard, you're eating more and like, you know, you can't physically see the changes until you compare like month on month, you know, progress photos or even longer than that. So I
Hmm.
think it is, like you said, just trusting that process and putting in that work. But then also, I find like food choices really help as well. Like you can't be eating Spud Light and like, you know, low calorie things in your
Pumpkin.
build. Yeah, exactly. Like I saw you have a lot of like smoothies and things in your build because it's convenient and like a good way to get calories in. So I think that's another important point is just like changing up your food sources to kind of lower volume, higher calorie options, right?
Yeah, and I think as well, like eating the food when you need it most. So I will load up on carbs before training, and after training, my meals are massive after training. And I find it's much easier to get the calories in straight after training because your body's hungry. You know, you've just like pushed really hard in the gym. So that's kind of my advice would be, you know, don't leave the carb dense meals to the end of the day when you are very full. You know, get them in early when your body's utilizing it, when your body needs it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, how good does it feel to train when you've got high carbs in your system too? Like, feels amazing.
Sometimes when you're prepping and you're really depleted, you forget how good it is to train with energy. And then when
You
you
do.
finish competing and you've got energy again, you're like, wow, I've really been missing this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So if you're in a build phase listening to this, make the most of those carbs around your training.
100%.
Is there anything you learn about like your body or your mindset by really just going all in on your improvement phase?
I think mindset definitely. I know we haven't really kind of touched on it, but as I briefly mentioned before, I went through some pretty heavy things in the end of 2024, and I really showed myself this season that if you focus on what you can control and not the things that you can't control, then you can achieve, you know, what you set out to achieve. I learnt a lot about myself in that period, and I just kind of proved to myself that it can be done. You know, things don't always go your way in life, and you know, hurdles will definitely approach you every now and then. But you know, if you're mentally, if you've got your head screwed on and you're focused and your why is at the front of your mind, it doesn't really matter what comes your way because nothing will stop you from doing the work.
Yes, that is so, so powerful. And I know like you went through a really tough chapter with losing your dad and the grief from that. What like did it actually mean to you to keep showing up through that season? And do you feel like it helped like having a goal to work towards?
Yeah, this is something that I've been very open about when speaking to people and even on my social media. Yeah, so for those who don't know, my dad passed away 2 weeks after the Gold Coast show in 2024. Um, I say this to people all the time, competing literally saved me. You know, I was going through some difficult things in my personal life, and my dad passed away, and there was just a lot going on. And I don't know where I would be today if I hadn't been so invested in competing at the time. You know, I have a really good coach who was by my side through it all. I have a really good partner, and everyone just kind of kept me on track, and I had a sense of purpose every day. So even though I wasn't in prep, I was in my off season, you know, when I was going through all this grief and all that kind of stuff. You know, as we said before, your changes occur in your off season, not your prep. So having that goal in mind and knowing that, you know, I have to do the work, I have to show up, I have to push through all this stuff that's going on in life. I just have to put that aside this morning and go to the gym and give it my all. I can't even express how much it helped me. It's been a very important aspect of my life the last year and more, but particularly in the last year because, you know, without it, for anyone who is, you know, going through stress in their life or grieving or whatever it may be, it is very hard sometimes to kind of even just get out of bed in the morning. It's really hard to keep that motivation just to keep some form of routine in your life. So, like I don't know how to express how important competing has been to me. And it saved me from a very difficult stage in my life. Every day I would just focus on one box at a time. And most days that looked like waking up, having something to eat, going and training really hard, getting my steps done for the day, maybe doing some posing practice, you know, whatever it may be. It just gave me that sense of purpose, and it really kept me moving at a time where I really needed the push to keep on moving. So yeah, it was extremely beneficial for me having this goal.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful, and like obviously such a sad situation and so sad seeing you go through that, but it's really cool to see how bodybuilding actually did help you through that, but in a healthy way as well, because you do sometimes see it, you know, taken to the other extreme.
Yeah, it was a crazy time, and there were days where I just wouldn't get any sleep at all. Like I could not switch my brain off. I was just not, you know, I wasn't doing great at the time, and I was just really struggling to relax overnight time. But I'd still be up. I'd be up at 6 a.m. straight into the gym. And some people might look at that and think, what a terrible idea, you know, recovery would be terrible. But for me, it was the constant in my life when there was a lot of chaos, there was a lot of noise, there was a lot of stuff going on. It was just that constant to lean on. So yeah, it was very good.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone listening to this who's also dealing with loss or grief, what's your best piece of advice for them?
Look, my best piece of advice would be try not to look at the whole mountain ahead of you. Just try and take it day by day, even hour by hour sometimes. It's literally just a process of putting one foot in front of the other. I think sometimes when you look at the big picture of how am I going to move forward, how am I going to survive this, whatever you might be thinking, I think it can be very overwhelming, very distressing. I think that would be my main piece of advice, and something that has really helped me is just focus on one tiny thing at a time. Break your day up if you have to into, you know, morning, lunchtime, afternoon. Just how am I going to keep moving? How am I going to stop myself from falling into a rut? That's the best piece of advice I could think of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really powerful and really, really good advice. You
Thank you.
also just got engaged. Congrats.
Thank you.
Did that shift your perspective on like priorities or identity outside of fitness?
I would be lying if I did not say yes. I think in my season, like my comp season last year, no, at the time, like I was just so locked in to my shows, and, you know, nothing was getting in the way of me in the NZ show. I was very focused on my goals. But I think now, having won my pro card and made my pro debut, I definitely think there's been a shift in my focus. I think as well, just because your partner is along the whole competing road with you, right? And if you're lucky, like me, and you have a good partner who is very patient and very understanding of the fun that comes with your partner competing, you know, like I think sometimes you owe it to them to make that shift every now and then where your whole world doesn't revolve around competing. So I am in that stage right now where, even though, you know, I'm still training very hard, I'm still tracking my nutrition, it's a lifestyle for me at this point, but I am definitely in that phase now where I'm counting down to my wedding. My partner is a huge priority to me. And yeah, there's just been a bit of a shift in priorities. But I also think that that is such an important, such a healthy balance to have because, as I said, the last 2 years for me, I've competed 4 times and my life was about competing. It was, every single day was about prep or, what I needed to do to get better or be better. So, yeah, I think it is a very much needed shift. But yes, my priorities have definitely shifted since the World Show, I'd say. Yeah.
Yes. And do you ever find it hard to separate like your identities, like as an athlete, as an FMG pro, as a fiance, friend, daughter? Like, is it hard to kind of separate those identities for you?
Yes and no. I think when you're in prep, definitely, because and again, I feel like only people that have prepped before will understand this, but when you are, when you are 10, 15 weeks into a prep, you're tired, you're exhausted, all you can think about is the show. Like, it becomes your whole personality. It's all you, like, when you're really fatigued, it's all you can talk about is prep related conversation. It's all you can kind of muster up the brain power to talk about. I think, yes, when you're competing, it is very hard to kind of I don't know, wear all of those hats. In your off season, like where I am right now, I think it's easier because you can have a bit more of that balance in your life. But, definitely when you're competing, it is very hard to be the partner, be the athlete, be locked in on your goals, but also be present. It's very challenging, yeah.
How do you stay so consistent with so much going on in your life?
I think if you had have asked me that a year ago, I'd say it is literally survival for me, is just staying consistent, again, going back to that goal, that constant. But I think nowadays it's just who I am. I've built a very nice routine for myself where I love training. I love fueling my body. I'm very passionate about health and well-being. I live and breathe this lifestyle. Don't necessarily see it as staying consistent. It's just kind of who I am nowadays, to be honest with you. I love how you feel when, you're training and you're looking after yourself and you're getting strong. I love how it makes me feel. And honestly, it's the best thing ever for anyone's mental well-being is training and looking after yourself. I always say to people, I kind of touched on this before, but anything can happen in life at any time that is completely out of your control. But your health, your strength, your fitness, like that is, you are the only person that can control that. So for me, that's very grounding for me in my life is, no matter what's going on in life, I can control how I look after my body. I can control how often I train. So yeah, like I guess to answer the question, I don't struggle to stay consistent because I love this lifestyle and I like how it makes me feel.
Yes, I absolutely love everything you just said there, and I can completely relate to that. It's not like you wake up in the morning and you're like, am I going to go to the gym today? Or like, am I going to eat healthy? It's just like you go train and like that's your normal food that you eat. So, yeah, completely relate to that. And I think that's built over time as well. Like, I think
A
if
hundred
you
percent.
look back to the start, like when you first started, tracking your food or weighing everything out or like training this many times a week, like is kind of harder at the start, but then you actually just become that person and it becomes, part of your everyday life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm at a really different place now where, I can go out to a restaurant or whatever and eat whatever I want with no guilt and I get straight back on track the next day. And it's not because I feel obliged to, it's not because, I'm punishing myself. It's because I actually want to because it makes me feel good. And, your body needs good fuel. So yeah, I think yeah, I'm just at a place nowadays where I've learnt so much. But like you said, this has been a long time coming. Like I don't want anyone to think that you just wake up one day and you just this doesn't happen overnight. This has been a long journey. Even before I started competing, my fitness journey started a long, long, long time ago. I've been training for years. I've been tracking for years. So yeah, it hasn't happened overnight, but I've gotten to a place where I have a really good balance and I have a really good relationship with food and training and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, I love that. And what's next for you other than obviously wedding planning?
Yeah. What is next? Look, I will be honest, I don't have any shows in mind, which is so rare for me. I always have something in the back of my head. I don't have any shows in mind at the moment. Um, I what's next for me? Look, all of my kind of goals at the moment revolve around training, performance, getting really strong. I'm very obsessed at the moment with tracking my lifts and trying to hit PBs and lift heavy weights. And so I'd say all of my kind of future goals at the moment are to do with performance and my training. In terms of what I'm actually doing next, I really don't know. I don't have an answer for the first time ever in this industry anyway. I'm not sure what my road will look like from here, but am I finished with this journey? Absolutely not. No.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. Look, we don't know. Something might pop up. I'm not sure. But yeah, as you said, at the moment, I'm counting down for my wedding, focusing on my family life at the moment and a couple of other things in life. But never say never. We'll see where we go from there.
Yes, I'm excited to see what ends up happening. And
Thank you.
one final question for anyone who
hmm
is struggling in their off season or doubting if they can do it, what do you want them to know?
Well, I'll break that up into if you are struggling in your off season, I think the number one thing to remind yourself, and again, we've touched on it a few times, but it's so important that I think we should highlight it again. Your physique or success on show day is created in the off season. It is not created in prep. Prep is just shedding back the body fat. Everything you build, like the physique that you're going to present on show day, is built in the off season and is a reflection of the effort that you put in your off season. So if someone's struggling in their off season, I would say remind yourself of that. Keep that at the front of your head. Every time you think, you might weigh heavier or you're like X amount of weeks out, you've got so much time. I think that is really important to recognize that the work you do in your off season is going to dictate, I guess, the physique, the package that you're presenting on show day. And I think the other part of the question was if somebody's doubting that they can do it.
Yes.
Look, self-doubt, it's a fun little part of this sport. I think to a certain extent, everybody experiences self-doubt at some stage. But what I would probably say to that is you will not be the first person to doubt yourself and you will not be the last. Every single athlete that you look up to has been where you are. Nobody starts perfect. That's just not, this sport, that's just not how it works. In my first show, the athletes that I looked up to, there were so many athletes that I thought, wow, like they are just worlds away from me. They're incredible. I'm now in the pro lineup with those athletes. So I think just remind yourself that everybody starts somewhere. And, the Hattie Boydles, the Tarnies, all these incredible athletes, they all started right at the beginning where, people are who are probably doubting whether they can do this or not. So yeah, I think just as we have said throughout this podcast, just take it day by day, do the work. If you're willing to do the work, you're willing to show up and you're going to put in the effort, then the results will come. It's inevitable. If you keep working, yeah, you'll get where you want to be. So
Goosebumps, honestly, that is so inspirational. But I like completely agree with everything that you said. I feel like just having patience and being able to commit long term to showing up day by day is like literally what's going to get you the best results in this sport.
mhm,
Things are going to take way longer than you think. And it's just like committing to that long term goal and that long term progress, and then constantly just showing up no matter what else is going on in your life, I think is like honestly your biggest weapon. Like that's what's going to make you go far in the sport.
100%. And don't fall into the trap of comparisons. I feel like that's the number one thing for people that I speak to in this sport. They just, when you first start out, I feel like people just fall into that trap of comparing other people's stages, like what part of their journey other people are in. That's the best thing you can do is just focus on yourself, stay in your own lane, and again, trust the process and you will get there.
Yes, 100%. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast again. Your first podcast that you did was actually one of our most listened to episodes, and like we had multiple people request that you come back on. So thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you to anybody who has supported me. There's lots of people on social media that support your bodybuilding journey. So I'm very grateful that you've had me back on. And to anyone that has supported me, I really appreciate it.
Yes, and I will link your socials down below as well so that people can follow your build phase because I love how you share that aspect of it as well and how you're building strength and what you're eating and all those good things. Definitely
Mhm.
go and give Dana a follow. I'll also link our original episode if anyone hasn't listened to that one yet. They can go back, a little blast from
They
the
can
past.
see how much I've changed.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, thank you again for your time. And thank you for everyone who listened to this episode. If you did enjoy it, then please like and subscribe and share it to your stories as well. Tag Dana, tag the Comp Closet, tag myself. We'd love to see what you're doing when you're listening or even what you learned from the episode. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.